this is temporary. A bad mood can't win the light.
Kasiko pesa mokongote munanga ye
Good evening, friends. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. We are quite excited to be for you to be with us today. Today it's a wonderful day. I'm so excited. Unfortunately, last week we couldn't be here, but we thank God that He has made it possible for us to be able to have this session today. As you all know, Drizzle of Joy is all about sharing inspirational stories and being able to enjoy each other in this time. So today I'm quite excited. I'm joined by someone special. He's a young man, he loves the Lord, and he's also a pastor's kid. He's an author as well, so quite exciting. So we're going to have fun today, and I'm going to allow him to really just introduce himself and truly thank you for joining us today. Lebo, please introduce yourself.
Good evening, Mam Ruti. Good evening, every single one. Thank you so much for the invite today. As Mam Ruti has already mentioned, my name is Lebogang Lebelo, and I'm from Pretoria. And I suppose, my brief introduction is that I'm a husband to Bonolo Lebelo, and I am a father to Umulemo Lebelo. And so much more, I suppose we'll find out as we go along in the interview.
Thank you, Lebo, for joining us. I love your introduction, a husband to Bonolo. She should be a very proud wife. Thank you so much.
I'm a proud husband.
Wonderful, wonderful. That's great to hear. It's always good for young men to love their wives. They say love your wife of your youth. So it's really great. So please say hi to Bonolo. We're really excited and we thank her for giving you the opportunity to come and sit with us and enjoy this moment. So Lebo, tell us a little bit about yourself. What do you enjoy doing? What are your hobbies?
Yeah, the question of hobbies during this pandemic, COVID-19 has taken all of them away. But essentially, I'm an easygoing type of guy. In my downtime, I love to watch movies. But I'd say, I think with so much time, time has been, taken up by a lot of things lately. But I love to read. But a lot of times when I read, it's because of research that I need to do. I love to listen to music, but again, when I listen to music, it often has to do with programs that I'm putting together or whatever the case may be. So hobbies, I'd say more like interests. I've got those sort of interests, but a lot of them, it's not just for downtime sake. It's to be productive doing those things. Yeah.
Great. So I've known you for quite some time, and I think when I started knowing you, I happened to realize your love for the young people, your love sharing of sharing ideas, and I've picked up that obviously through that love you have actually even developed a career out of it. So you are a life coach. So tell us a little bit about your career.
Okay, so maybe just to not be hasty and call myself a life coach as yet. I just say I'm about to formalize that aspect. I'm currently doing a program and to see if I can get the formal accreditations. But all along, I've been doing work as a development practitioner. So that's what I would call myself. It is pretty much linked to the first degree that I did, which is development studies. And that work, or rather that degree, I've combined it with the work that I've done at church with the young people. And much of what I do with the qualification combined with my experience with young people is that I do youth programs focused on economic development. So yeah, so that's essentially what I do. And as I said, the life coaching aspect of it, I'll probably call myself a life coach from next year onwards, once my accreditations, my qualifications have been accredited, or rather finalized.
Wow.
Yeah.
No, they'll get finalized. I know that you are a focused young man. So, Lebo, just a quick one. So today, our topic is defined by destiny. And, for me, looking at you, you are a pastor's child. And obviously, this is a topic that is very close to my heart. And, growing up as a pastor's kid, obviously there are great challenges that you come across, and maybe if you can share a little bit, those bit of challenges that you have come across, being a pastor's child. And I think in your case it's even worse, because your father is not just the pastor of a church, but he's pastoring other pastors. So obviously when people look at you, they look at you with this, with this eye. So maybe share a little bit about the challenges of being a pastor's kid.
Okay, so it's actually been quite an interesting journey to this point. First to point out is that my dad wasn't always a pastor from the time I was born growing up. I think officially he became a pastor as I was about to get into my high school years. And the transition hasn't been too difficult from the side of home, as in I think my dad really handled it quite well. That whole transition and ensuring that not that much pressure is imposed on us as a family. However, of course, society, the community does expect quite a lot from pastors' kids. And to just remember, or rather to recall one incident that took place that sort of, summarizes what my challenges have been as a pastor's kid, is that around the time I was, I think about 16, 17 years old, the church decided to do a pastor's celebration, a pastor's appreciation service. And I think it was one of the first ones that they had for him. And of course, we knew all about it. But for us, or rather for me, it was a surprise when we arrived there and I realized that they're not just appreciating him, but they're appreciating all of us as a family. And what that meant is that we all needed to go up on stage and be seated. And, his pedestal was now our pedestal. And I didn't quite enjoy that, to the point that I walked out. And one by one, some of the elders came out trying to convince me to go up and join my family on stage and, just do it for my dad, do it for the family. And, and it took a bit of time, several of them came out until I sort of decided, let me just go up and let me do this. And the thing about this is that around that time I was, going through, what normal youth go through. I was a teenager and I was actually quite popular at school. And with popularity, comes a lot of accesses, so I had access to this, to that, and I was quite liked. I was getting a whole lot of attention, a lot of attention. And so you can imagine that, when this pedestal is extended to you at church and you've got these things that you are dealing with as a young person, and it's things that you feel you don't want people to know. You don't want to be exposed. You're still working them out. You're still trying to make sense of the world. And being put up there, I felt like I was being put on display. I was being exhibited. And, that essentially summarizes what my personal challenge has been about being a pastor's kid, is that everybody's in your business. Everybody's has got expectations of you. You're expected to join your dad, in his journey, Of course, it's our journey, but it's his journey. So
Yeah.
those have been some of the challenges. Yeah.
But as you say that, obviously you're always like on the pedestal. People are watching you. You're like a president's child. That's how I sometimes view it. That, how have you managed to maneuver around it? Not to be identified by your father's title or by your father's calling. How have you maneuvered around it and being able, to create that destiny that you wanted to create for yourself?
To be honest, I'm not sure if it was really managing to maneuver. I just remember that in my years in high school, I was, what one could say a bit of a rebel. And not in an extreme way, but I was a rebel in a sense that I wouldn't allow other people to define me for me. I always ensured to uh, define my own path, and to do what it is that I wanted to do. And it didn't always, get me the best results. And on the other side, you're always cognizant of the fact that your dad has got this role in the church, whereby, sometimes we would see families coming to the house for a counseling session and they'd be there with my dad. And at the back of your mind, that if it's somebody who's counseling other households, his household itself has to be in order. So there's always been that sort of thing you have in the back of your mind as a responsibility that you yourself need to uphold. But the only way I've sort of managed to just go along with life is, that sort of rebellious streak, slightly a bit of a rebel. And that's how I kind of managed to go through the years. And I think only after high school that I maybe really embrace the fact that, his calling is very close to perhaps our responsibility as well as a family, and going that much deeper into doing youth work. I sort of took it upon myself to, in a sense, support him as well, and whatever ministry I could play a role, I did that. Yeah.
So you kind of like made it a point that you find your place within the ministry where you can be able to be of assistance to him.
Yeah.
And when you say this, the question that I want to ask is that in that process, were you not finding it to be a challenge or like something, like for the fact that, people look at your father to say that, what, this is what we expect of you, this is what we expect of your children. Have you not found that to be kind of like dictating to you the kind of life that you really need to live?
So it can get quite overwhelming. And again, I think for me, the only thing that really helped me to get over all of that was that I sort of decided to create for myself my own little box, and I did what I wanted to do. Live my life the way that I wanted to live. But it is quite overwhelming because when you're going through life as a young person, there are a lot of things that you're trying to figure out, and you are definitely far from being perfect. And as much as people would say that, no one is perfect, I think implicitly there is that expectation of the pastor's household, for it to be closer to that perfection. And it was always there. So we had those sort of challenges. There were people who, from time to time, I've had to engage. And I think one thing that did help me is that I'm not afraid to confront a situation. I'm not afraid to speak out. And that essentially has assisted me not to internalize some of the things that I was feeling.
Yeah, no, that's interesting. But Lebo, you are a writer, and obviously it was a journey for you to end up writing the book that you wrote. And maybe tell me a little bit about your journey up till the point whereby you decided to write this book, and what really pushed you to end up putting it on paper.
Okay, so the writing came as I would say a gift from God. And how it happened is that before I was called into a ministry, because in my own right now, I'm also a pastor. I went through a bit of a dramatic experience when I was being called of God. And there were so many things that happened around that, what I call the calling experience, that built up to me beginning to write and putting together the books that I'm writing now. And I could say that it came in a moment of prayer. I was actually going through fasting. And during this time, I was really hearing God in a way that I've never heard him before. And like a whisper to my ear just came to me saying, write books. And that's how I knew that, okay, I think God is communicating something. I prayed on it. And then I began to put together, the different pieces of writing that I'd already put together from the past, compiling it into some kind of a manuscript that was able to come together in the form of a book. And essentially, I write about the things that I train on, because I still do youth workshops whenever I get the opportunity to do that. And economic development for young people is one hot topic that I write on. But the one other book is called The Lukewarm Test. That's essentially a book about spirituality. And it speaks about having to assess yourself as a Christian if you're actually still walking the path. And it just diagnoses various aspects of our social setting. And that's what it does. That's what it's about. Those are the two books that I've written so far, The Lukewarm Test, as well as Life Lessons of King Solomon.
So, Lebo, through our chats, obviously, I personally have seen that a lot of pastors' kids, feel like they've got this big challenge that they are facing, especially around their father's ministry, and where they end up not knowing whether they want to be part of the ministry or not want to be part of the ministry. And I don't know from your side, how do we actually find a way of helping, like, as you say, you have decided to go into the ministry, but probably it's a decision that you have made. How about those ones that feel like, what, this is not for me, I'm not interested, and how do we actually help them to be able to go into this journey with an open heart and with an open mind? Because my personal worry is to say that you see a lot of them leaving the church, you see a lot of them getting into bigger trouble that then meets the ice.
Yeah. So it's quite a complex sort of thing to sort of pin it down to a strategy that we can follow. But let me ponder a bit on my own situation. So I'm a third generation pastor, and I was fortunate to live a few years with my grandparents around. And every single time we visited them, there were moments of prayer and moments of being encouraged in the word. When you came home, it was the very same thing. And then, of course, we had church. And in my case, the journey was made easier because of my dad, the kind of father he is, as well as my mother. My parents were quite easygoing about us as a pastor's family. But growing up, being fed with the word from my grandparents, as well as our parents, I grew up knowing that there's a benefit to the word of God. And I was also fortunate to see the word of God, how shall I say, being demonstrated in my life. So times when I got sick and I would be prayed for and I would instantly get healed. Or if there's an altar call at church and I feel convicted and I would go up, and after the altar call, I'd begin to see a certain change in my life. So I was always quite reflective on my own personal journey also as a Christian. So I wasn't just a bystander watching the pastor's family sort of, going through the motions of the ministry. but I became part of that as well, and I decided to explore God for myself. And I think at the end of the day, it's always gonna come back to the individual, that irrespective of the setting that you might have. I mean, some pastors' kids are not gonna have the privilege of having parents who are just relaxed. Some pastors are quite hectic. I know some of them must drink, and the rules of the home, and it was just hectic. But at the end of the day, when you receive the word, or when preaching takes place at church, the same word that is given to the congregation, it will reach you as well as an individual. And so you'll come out knowing the truth, and at the end of the day, you will have to make decisions for yourself if you want to walk the path of God or not. So it's really difficult, to advise another. But I think at the end of the day, what I would say is that God's way is the best way. And fortunately for me, I've encountered that for myself. I've experienced that for myself.
Wow. Thank you so much to our viewers. We've got a question here, Lebo. Mr. Blue Mercedes says, how do you advise someone who wants to write a book, but they are not necessarily a good reader?
Wow. So the first question there would be, are you not a good reader because your grammar and spelling is off? Because then writing is going to be very challenging for you. But this is what I'll say. The latest book that I'm on now, and it should be released, I think, in the next month or so, actually assists to answer those kinds of questions. Because this book essentially speaks about us having to go into different skill sets, training ourselves up into skill sets that we didn't necessarily go to university for. And I speak about picking up, this kind of language, this kind of knowledge on the go, because of so many tools that are available to us now because of what the internet has allowed. And so a lot of things you are able to pick up and start learning them, such as writing books. Writing a book is not an easy task, because there are a lot of things that are involved in having to ensure that it reads well, it flows well, the message comes out clearly, your sentence structures, grammar, and then at the end, the formatting of the book. All of those things are quite crucial to consider. But I would say that if you really want to write, it's your first time and you're not sure if you'll be able to cut it, perhaps come closer to someone who's written a book, and be advised, and then start with a page, and then after a page, complete a chapter, and let someone critique that and check if there's some kind of flow before you build it up into a full-on book. Doesn't always have to be just a book. You can write a poem, you can write a short story. Start in that way, and then let someone critique it for you.
Yeah. I think probably, like, maybe if one starts writing, and then you can, as you say, maybe write a couple of pages and then find someone to critique your writing and your grammar, and then maybe take it from there.
And that will be a yes or a no, but another thing is, allow yourself to grow in a thing. So don't rush yourself. So continue practicing, and definitely don't stop reading. Continue reading, because reading does help in terms of just your vocabulary and knowing how to present your case.
Yeah, Mr. Masedi, so reading is important. For you to improve your grammar, you need to read, my brother. You need to read. We've got another question from our viewers. The question says, is it possible for a PK to misinterpret their father's calling as theirs? And how should a father deal with such a child without seeming to be shutting them down?
Okay, so they're talking about what? Misinterpreting the father's calling.
Yeah,
Oh,
like the child will
okay.
misinterpret the father's calling as his own calling.
Okay. All right. So it's one of those things again where I'd say, in an easy going sort of environment, you're able to navigate and find yourself that much more organically. And I don't think that pastors' kids should ever allow themselves to be pressured or for them to pressurize themselves to fit into what their parents are called to. Um, I'd say that they should sort of let it unfold. For them, it's really just to see where they can support. Um, you know, our ministries, or rather, let me say, ministry is like an organization in the world in the way that it's run, and there are a lot of facets that will need support here and there. And so, speaking to your parents and just finding out where you can be of assistance to just make sure that the whole thing is easier for them as well. I think that may help in just getting involved in the whole thing without, all of a sudden calling yourself Pastor Junior. We don't need to do that. You can just let it flow, and
But as you are saying that, don't.
maybe before we move on from that question, Mamuruti, let me again reflect on myself. So I was always asked if I think I will also be a pastor uh, growing up, to the point where my wife also, before she was my wife, wanted to know if I will be a pastor, because she wanted to know if she will have to be Mamurut. and she wanted to make the decision before then, whether or not we're gonna go along, and get
So did
married.
you lie to her? Did you lie
Yeah,
to her?
I did not lie. I did not lie, and that is my story, and I'm sticking to it. But it's more like, I've always been open to God's uh, direction for my life, and I have never wanted to jump on anything prematurely. And especially the whole thing of ministry, man. You really don't want to mess around with ministry. On the one hand, uh, it's growing up, I was told that I should avoid at all costs to be a pastor because that's where poverty is, or bophelo ba bana ba baruti bo boima, so you really don't become a pastor. um and those kind of things are quite discouraging. So you want to make sure that if you are really called to ministry, it's real, that it's what you are meant to be doing, and God will be with you along the way. It's definitely not easy. Even in my few years of assisting as a youth pastor at my father's church, um, I've experienced a bit of backlash here and there. I've experienced criticism. I've been in instances where some of the young people did not want to be led by me. So all of those things are quite discouraging. So you must just be sure if ministry is for you and don't jump the gun.
Yeah. So, as you were saying that, because I think the environment that many pastors kids find themselves is that, hypothetically, when you are a pastor's kid, sometimes other people in the church expect you, to know the Bible. They expect you to, do certain things because you are from a pastor's family. And, obviously, I think those kind of pressures kind of like maybe position you, when people look at it, to be the next pastor, because you should know the Bible more than we do. So, and my question is that, in that environment, how do you differentiate and say, what, this is not my calling, it's my father's calling, and obviously focus on the things that makes you happy?
and hence some pastors' kids end up leaving the church because they don't know how to handle that. Very difficult because growing up a pastor's kid in your teenage years, especially, you still don't know how to rationalize things. You still don't know how to separate one thing from the other. So it's always going to be very difficult to know how to navigate that yourself. And that's where I think the church community needs to be conscientized. And I'm not sure who would be able to do that, perhaps the board, perhaps the elders, but to just say, to the church and, the members that, always remember that Bana Baba Ruti, they are also just normal kids like any other kid. And they should not be expected to be, super spiritual or more spiritual than any of us. So let's just make sure that we not impose, pressure on them. My own personal experience, though, has been a bit different because I used to love church. I used to love Sunday school. I used to love reading the Bible by myself. And so by the time I got to high school, I used to be able to argue my own points, theological points. If I had to get into a debate with somebody about why do Christians do this and that sort of thing, I was even able to quote from scripture. So, my experience was a bit different in that I had my own relationship with God from an early age. And so navigating my father's calling wasn't too difficult of an issue for me. It was just at that time, I think, when I felt like now people are trying to push me into his own onto his own pedestal, such as the example that I cited. That's where I found an issue there, because as much as I had my own relationship with God, my father was the pastor. I am just, someone who happens to be his son. And so the things that I expected of him should not be expected of me. But yeah, it's always going to be difficult. But I really think that's where maybe community will have to come in. And when I say community, I mean the church members just need to be conscientized so that all of us, we support and protect the pastor's family in that way. Yeah. Because Lebo Mamruti, but we're not talking about that today, right? Yeah, well.
So to our viewers, thank you for viewing today. We're giving away prizes today, so I'm quite excited. I'm going to give one book, and the first one I'm going to give to the person that posted a comment. Ntate Masedi Blue, I'm giving you a book. Thank you for posting your question and for watching us today. Lebo is going to be, just show them the book, Lebo. So it's a book that is written by Lebo. It's the lukewarm test. And then on the other side, it's actually a double book. So you're actually getting two books in one. Thank you so much, Lebo, for giving away the books. But and Tatema said you're going to have to pay for your own courier. So you get in the book, but we'll organize the couriering. And I'm going to give Lebo a chance to post the one question. And whoever answers this question correctly, then we'll get the second book. Over to you, Lebo.
Oh, my goodness, correctly. Maybe let's ask this question, but there's no wrong or right answer. But to the viewers,
whoever answers first.
That's it. Would you, or rather, can you cite one instance where you believe or where you know that you were one who posed a problem for a pastor's kid? So in other words, have you been the problem in a pastor's kid's life? And what is it that you did? And then maybe the other side of the question would be, maybe you were not really the problem to them, but you were someone who provided support to them. So maybe you can just cite what it is that happened to them and you provided support for the pastor's kid. Yeah.
There you go. So for the second question, the first book goes to Ntate Masedi Blue. And then the second one, whoever answers this one correctly then or first, because there's no wrong or right answer. So whoever answers the question first, they'll get the book. And
Mama Ruti,
yes.
just on that question, you know, a lot of times re rata ho quote ko kerekeng kre bolela ore, you know, no weapon shall prosper, no weapon formed against
No
me
weapon
shall
formed against me shall.
and I've often thought that, you know what, some of these people, this is what they say, but they don't know. Horio, they are like the weapons that are formed against us. You know? they are the weapons that should not prosper against us, you know. So you know, that's always been my own private joke.
So you
know.
find the weapons in the church.
Yo, there are many there. Yo, those the weapons that are forming against.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Lebo, for this time. I really enjoyed my time with you. And hey, okay, I think. Okay, we've got an answer. We've got Meflora Lesiane. She says she provided support and was also at her deathbed. So, Meflora Lesiane, you get yourself a book. Thank you to the viewers. Thank you so much. But hey, so yours is on the way, Meflora Lesiane. So hey guys, thank you so much for joining us. So I want to invite you to buy this book. So I have written a book. It's called to Be a Pastor's Kids. That's why we are interviewing Lebo today. And I just want to invite you to buy your own copy. Next week, we'll be joined by another PK. And please join us because we'll be unfolding a little bit more on this book. So copies are available, 150 per copy. WhatsApp me, send me a message to get your copy. And thank you so much for joining us tonight, Lebo. Thank you for your time. I really enjoyed this time. And I believe that our viewers at home also enjoyed this time. And we're looking forward to seeing you next week because we will be having another PK next week. And hey, have a blessed night and enjoy your evening. Bye.
Bye.
When you're moving forward, you cannot look back. Everything you see is an illusion. Believe in yourself. Believe in yourself. Help when you can. Give when you can. Smile when you can. Cry when you can. Darkness is temporary. A bad mood can't win the light.
Pisa na wewe wazangie lela na wazana mawae kasiko pesa mo